Miss Eleanor Jones, our moderator for this afternoon proceed. And colleagues, bonjour. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the part 2 of the CanCarib Climate Smart Opportunity Summit. We are pleased to host this business initiative targeting the energy and clean tech sector here in Jamaica. Let me also welcome Claudia Guterres, our Regional Trade Commissioner for Clean Tech Sector in Bogota, as well as many Canadian and Jamaican business persons joining us online today. Indian firm possess for leading capacity in the priority sector and in that regard, they are collaborate with Jamaican company in the continued development of Jamaica energy sector. Last year, and as recent as May 2023, several Canadian companies explore a few opportunities in the Jamaican clean tech market. We are indeed pleased to recognize some of the discussion and linkage arising from these efforts and look forward for forging partnership which will benefit both countries. I am also pleased to join us today. We have a CEO from 3 major energy companies in Jamaica, GPS, GEP, and Wigton Wind Farm, in addition to executive from major financial institutions in Jamaica. We're talking about the Scotia Group, CIBC, First Caribbean International Bank, and the National Commercial Bank and CB. We are also delighted to welcome also the regional manager from Export Development Canada, EDC. EDC is Canada Export Agency to support and develop trade between Canada and other countries. And of course, our very accomplished moderator will introduce each member of the distinguished panel. But before that, mention that the government that remain committed to the continued strengthening of the historical, diplomatic, and trade relation, which our two countries have enjoyed over the past 60+ years. The Canadian Trade Services is ready to provide support to our clients, the Canadian company, but also business contact. Therefore, I encourage you to continue to leverage this in-market assistance provided by the team in Kingston. We look forward to this afternoon's discussion and to supporting the potential business relationship and meaningful outcome. Merci beaucoup. And now over to you, Mr. Jones.
Thank you very much, Ms. Goulet, Senior Trade Commissioner. It's a pleasure, as it always is, to join with the Canadians. And this is I guess, the follow-up summit we had last year, all-day session, where we opportunities, and now we are digging deeper, looking specifically at partnerships and financing. Which is seeking partnerships. Thank you very much. Had a little bit of a tech change since we are in a technology forum. So we are focused on energy, clean technology, and partnership with Canada. I was reading earlier and was really taken aback with what I shared with the Canadian team here, that Canada has a very strong clean energy system, and Canadian companies have an export mindset, with clean electricity companies increasingly exporting to foreign markets. And it was really intriguing that 87% of Canadian clean technology firms export and have solutions deployed in the United States, Latin America, Asia, and Europe. And I think that is very interesting and very important for us as we have this discussion this afternoon, as we are looking to see to what extent can these clean technology companies continue expand their reach into partnering with some of our major energy producers here, and also looking to our financial institutions, the major ones, some of the major ones being represented here as well. So I'd like to introduce, first of all, Mr. who is the Chief Executive Officer of Public Service, which is our lead utility or primary energy producer. And he is with us on the platform, and a special welcome to Mr. Burbrick, actually, because he's relatively new to Jamaica. And so he, like so many of us, are also in a learning mode, and perhaps learning about what Canada can do and will do, and also teaching Canada what Jamaica can do. We also have, and I have to my immediate right, Miss Michelle Chin Lin, who is representing Wigton Wind Farm, outstanding, leading clean energy, and as it says, a wind farm, so renewables. And we have online with us Mr. Wayne McKenzie, who is a Chief Executive Officer of the largest independent power producer. Actually, Wigton Wind Farm is also an independent power producer. So we're going to move straight in to discuss to our panelists. And just to say that this summit is really timely, in that we are in very serious times, or we are seeing the evidence of the climate crisis. It's all around us. And it's not only the heat, but it's flooding in some places, it's drought. So for climate deniers, you have to really think again. And I don't think we have any climate deniers in this forum, but nevertheless, this forum extends beyond where we are, and we really have to push, because the whole business of moving towards net zero, emission control, clean energy is absolutely critical for our survival on this planet. And we want to hear then from first of all, our energy producers, what you're doing, how you see the picture, and what you think perhaps we can do with Canada, what can Canada do with us. And so I'm going to turn over, first of all, to Mr. Burbrick.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jones. I really appreciate that. And I appreciate the opportunity to participate in this today. As Ms. Jones noted, I'm the CEO of the Jamaican Public Services Company, and we're the sole integrated utility here on the island. Our supply chains certainly reach up into Canada, and we're delighted to have the partnerships that we have on some of their equipment, and some of the services that we use. At Jamaica Public Service, JPS, we're certainly on the forefront of this transition that's going to occur to a clean energy. We expect to be great partners with the culture and society here, and the government and the policymakers about decarbonizing this system, and then leveraging the electric system to then further decarbonize the rest of the economy. By way of background, I was the former CEO of the California grid operator and markets in California and much of the West. And we had extensive relationships with Canadians who sold power to California. But the relevant part of that is that we routinely in California, the 5th largest economy in the world, 50% renewables, wind and solar solely. In addition to that, we had points where we ran the grid at 70, 80, 90% of the load served by clean energy sources. So I know the art of the possible and what can be done here on the island. So that's our mission, and we take it very, very seriously to be a partner of this. I will go on to say that as Jamaica wants to get to 50% renewables by 2030, an ambitious goal. And the island would like to be a place where people could come, other like economies and countries can come and see how it's done. And that's what we aspire to as this. The investment that's going to be needed, it will be more than $1 billion of investment to get to 50% renewables through the necessary equipment, and storage, transmission assets, and those kinds of things. So there's going to be ample investment and economic. I'll leave it there and hope that covered the waterfront. So reasonably well.
For the start, yes,
you.
okay. Thank you very much. We're very pleased to have you and to have you speak to the whole business of the mix and the renewables and your own experience. And we look forward perhaps more to what you're going to be able to help Jamaica do to hear from our other partners and our financiers. And just to say, I neglected to welcome everyone who is online. There's quite a number of participants, as I can see. And what I'd like to do is to encourage you to put your comments or your questions in the chat. We have the team here from the Canadian High Commission who will be monitoring this, and we'll bring it to the attention of our panelists. So I'm going to move on as we're talking partnerships. I'm going to move on to Miss Lee Chin. Chinlen.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm christening you all kinds of
thank
things
you.
today.
I'm very honored to be on this panel. We have a long-standing relationship with the Canadian Trade Mission. Just some background. Wigton was formed almost 20 years ago, 2004. We are the largest renewable IPP in Jamaica of wind. We were initially a government entity. So our parent company, I see Loic Online, we used to do studies looking at small hydro. So I know there's lots of opportunities to work with the various persons in the online. But Wigton, was primarily in wind. In 2019, we were divested. We were listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. We have almost 30,000 shareholders. So we've been looking to diversify from just wind energy. And since 2019, we've been looking at some small solar opportunities. Right now, we did a project with the Kingston Airport. We're implementing a project with the National Irrigation Commission, which is going to showcase some of the largest storage in Jamaica outside of the utilities battery project, looking at 3.7 megawatts of megawatt and 6.6 megawatt hours of battery storage. We have some direct linkages out of what we have been able to glean from the Canadians. Yasin had done a study tour with us to BCIT. We saw electric vehicles and solar roofs. So we went and built our training lab with a solar roof, and we've invested in a company that's doing electric vehicle charging, vehicle infrastructure and vehicles in Jamaica. So we see direct linkages in what the Canadians can offer and what we can implement here and implement. Also, it's very dear to my heart, having gone to Waterloo. So we want to keep the collaboration going. So right now we're in wind, solar, electric vehicles and training, renewable energy training, but we're open to partnerships. We want to branch out into real estate using as much renewable energy as possible, agriculture using as much renewable energy as possible. We know Canada is big on fuel cells, hydro. We're open to all opportunities, collaboration, and any other opportunities.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. And they were asking who was speaking, and I'm going to call her correctly this time. Miss Michelle Chinlen.
Yes.
From the Wigton Wind Farm, which is the largest renewable independent power producer. Get the speech right. Okay, and so now as we're talking partnership, we want to move on to Mr. Wayne McKenzie, Jamaica Energy Partners, Jamaica Energy Partners Group. So, Mr. McKenzie.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Hi, Elena. How are you?
Hi, Wayne. Good to see you.
Same here. Michelle, how are you? Steve, we really should meet. I've been trying to get in contact with you, but I think everybody is busy. All right. My name is Wayne McKenzie. I'm the
partnership
Yes.
now, Wayne. They open the door for you.
right. I'm the president and CEO for the Jamaica Energy Partners Group. We actually own the but on the IPP that operates all thermal units in Jamaica. And we do have a relationship with Canadian companies. All our interconnecting equipment were bought from in Canada. Our engineering company is K-Line, which is also Canadian. So we have some relationship on the hardware side. With this new RFP that is coming out, we're also looking at Canadian products on the solar side, on the battery side, because I know that Canada has some very good batteries. So I'm hoping that at the end of these discussions, we can get some indication of support to the whole issue of the decarbonization process. One of the companies that we own and operate is Evergo, which is the largest charging network in Jamaica right now. We use United States and a European product as our chargers, but we encourage to the discussions with Canadian partners to build out our capacity using Canadian products. So Jamaica is receptive to investment from Canada. We certainly would not say no to getting financial support from Canada, providing the numbers are good enough to attract better values to our ratepayer, and ultimately to and certainly to our end user, which is our people. So I'm here to listen, and will participate in the deliberations between our partners here, and we'll see exactly how far today's proceeding will take. But thank you again, Elena, for having me, and Steve and Michelle, we will speak soon. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Wayne.
Look forward to it.
Thank you. What I'd like to ask our panelists to do, just to talk with each other, and perhaps for the benefit of our Canadian colleagues, perhaps you could talk about how you relate to the Jamaica Public Service Company, how you move into that grade. And I'm going to start with you, Wayne, and then ask Michelle. So if you could just speak a little bit about that, and then maybe Steve could sort of talk with each other for the benefit of our Canadian participants.
All right.
Go ahead, Wayne.
Okay, we have a relationship with this Canadian company called K-Line, who did our interconnection is, so we provide electricity to the grid. You have a generator, and the generator produces electricity. So you have transformers and switch gears, automatic switch gears, manual switch gears. I call them switches and breakers that protects the grid. If there's issues coming on from the generator side, and if there's issues coming from the grid side, it also protects our generator. K-Line has been an excellent partner for us. They are there from the development stage. They are very, very good engineers, and they would visit and they would do the designs of the total interconnection, which is transformers, breakers, and the associated switch gears. They would work with our local engineers on the civil side. So there's a relationship that is developed between ourselves and the Canadians. And these partnerships that are forged tend to get bigger and bigger because they grow based on relationships. Jamaica's and Steve, you'll see it pretty soon, Jamaica's a contract relationship. And so I'm pretty sure K-Line will do work for JPS as well. And maybe they did some work for Wigton. We have also had relationships on the financing side as well through CIBC and Bank of Nova Scotia. CIBC has been a partner with Jamaica Energy Partners from as early as 2009 when we did the West Kingston project. That was the first time when we had commercial banks financing projects in Jamaica. It was normally DFIs or multilaterals that you use to do these financing. CIBC with some Trinidad banks and local Jamaican banks I don't know if you call it NCB, a Trinidad, a Canadian bank, because it's owned by a Canadian Jamaican. But we can clearly say that the IBC and BNS are Canadian banks, and they have been very, very supportive. BNS also has a loan with Jamaica Private Power Company, another project that we own. So our relationship with Canada from a financing perspective and from the development perspective in terms of equipment has been very, very good. They have been very, very good partners, and you know, I can't talk enough about K-Line because they've always been supportive.
Okay. Oh, Michelle?
Okay, I would endorse that. We had worked with K-Line for Wigton 1 in terms of the build out of the transmission line. Wigton 2 and 3, we did a turnkey, so we didn't work with K-Line, but we do know of their work. In terms of Canadian, we worked with a consulting firm as well, doing some studies for us. I think that's as far as it goes. We've been trying to work with Scotiabank, but as everyone knows, there's an upcoming RFP. We'll all be looking for financing options.
How do you work with JPS? How do you find working with JPS?
Me first. We have a long-standing relationship, as I say, with JPS, no issues, almost 20 years. So we know how they work. We know their teams been quite efficient.
All right, let me answer that. And Steve, you don't need to worry about it. I'm going to say it proudly. I am a product of JPS. JPS Co actually was that institution that sent me to engineering school. So whilst and that's one of the reasons why whenever JP puts something on the ground, we try to do it at a cheaper cost that JPS Co can look better to the public. We have a very, very good relationship with JPS. I was the chief operational planning engineer for JPS. So I know system control very, very well. I know the guys who work there. I still see it, whilst I've been in JEP for more than 25 years, I still see JPS as the company that has made me where I am now. And I still sometimes drive under these distribution lines and look at switches and fuses because it still brings back those memories. So I have a very, very good relationship with them.
Okay. So as we talk about the production of energy, we are into clean energy. That's where we want to go. We have production fuel, and I think Wayne, you're moving into the electric vehicles. But how do you see where we need to go in terms of Jamaica? If we look outside of just being power producers, renewable energy, what do you see as happening here in Jamaica in terms of the business of application of clean technologies, moving to net zero, moving to decarbonizing? Do you think there's sufficient awareness? What do you think you could be doing, we could be doing as energy producers, as consumers, if we really want to make the difference that is necessary? And when we read and hear about what's going on around the world, that are really in bad shape. We've recorded with the highest temperatures. We can't continue business as usual, and perhaps we're not moving as fast as we need to go. Do you have any suggestions as to maybe where we might go, what we might do? I know, Mr. Berbick, you're relatively new on the ground. With you, a wealth of experience from elsewhere. Are there any sort of recommendations or anything that you would like to suggest, put on the table for us going forward? Thinking about our partners, as this is a trade summit, an exchange. We're not just selling things to each other, we're also selling knowledge. So we're sharing knowledge, we're sharing and exploring opportunities. Anything you want to say on that?
Yeah, I think the principal thing we need to do is be proactive, and let me take that. There's a lot of infrastructure that's going to need to be in to really help us decarbonize the grid. It's going to take as I mentioned before, over $1 billion of investment. That's just to decarbonize the grid. And that's just to get to 50%. But you take it the next step, which is what do we really want to do? We really want to decarbonize the entire economy. The electric grid, I believe, is a key conduit to help do that. So first you decarbonize the electric grid, but let's think about the next steps. Transportation, housing, all those kinds of, well, it's all electric here. I have to keep remembering that you don't have to do heating here. It's one of the key things I have to get over, but
Maybe one of the positives that we have.
it's one of the positives. So yes, we usually have heaters and air conditioners, but so there's a few electric vehicles here now, but I can tell you firsthand, as that curve starts to go very exponentially, you want to get ahead of it in terms of infrastructure. And that means charging stations and charging infrastructure. And what you want to do is you want to do it as smart as possible, because electric vehicles in two ways can be both very, very good for the grid and very, very bad for the grid. And let me explain. First of all, they're great when married up appropriately with renewables. They can help manage the intermittency of renewables. They can provide critical grid services that we get with thermal plants now. But you have to think about how and when they charge, and there are economic signals that can be provided to do that, and there are other ways to go about that. So thinking ahead to that. Secondly, we all know that we need to have charging infrastructure in place, but what I don't want to do is see what I've seen had happened in California. You have 50 Teslas lined up for 10 chargers, and you probably have all seen these pictures of these fast chargers. They're all lined up behind it. We have to do that. We have to figure out how to get that infrastructure in place. Now that's easy for the highways and things like that, but what about multifamily buildings? What about for those people who don't have ready access to it? I think we have to think about all those variables too. So again, it's being proactive. This is not something we have to recreate from scratch. It's been done in other parts of the world. Let's learn from what they've done, and let's think ahead. If I might say one other thing real quickly too, it's critical that we do this so that it's economically feasible. If we don't do that, then we're going to lose the support of the people that we need to help support this. So we're doing analysis now. The electric, I know that the electric system here is expensive. I know that it's expensive for people who pay the bills to JPS. Much of that is because we have to import everything. We have to import the fuel. We have to import the diesel. I mean, we have to import everything. And that's what largely drives up the costs. So the extent that we can generate it here with zero marginal cost energy, I think we're all going to be ahead of the curve. And I think we can find ways to reduce the cost of the system while we're doing this.
Yeah. Anything you have to say on that, Wayne or?
No, in terms of how
Michelle.
to get to where we're getting, I mean, from IPP standpoint, we have to bid, so we're all readying ourselves for that. The bids haven't been coming out that fast. We know that which is on the transmission and distribution to take the amount of interest in RE there is. So that has to be balanced as well. So I think those will help us to get to where we need to get in terms of the electricity side, and you mentioned the housing and transport side.
Yeah, and if I might add one other comment. There is already a significant grid infrastructure here, and what we don't want to do is have to spend billions of dollars on new transmission. So I think it's incumbent upon us to plan holistically, so that, for instance, Kingston's a load center. If we build all of this stuff to the west of Kingston, now we need more transmission. So let's build some east, let's build some west, so that we can be thoughtful about how we do this, so we don't have to drive a lot more infrastructure as we go through this process.
Big questions in the chat. Can you discuss data digitization strategy, JPS? For example, sharing data like California does with the green button standard. Can you?
I can talk about it. I'm not that familiar with the green button standard per se, but I will tell you this. One of the first things I told the people at JPS I wanted to do was be more transparent. And one of the things we did at my old organization is we showed everybody what the dispatch looked like. How much energy are renewables producing right now? What's the mix? What is storage doing? And I think that helps in a couple of ways. Number one, I think it's great information. But number two, I think it gets people to think about, okay, so now if I see, for instance, we know solar goes down when the sun goes down, batteries can play a critical role in that. And I think you can really get your mind around the needs of the grid as you see what demand does versus what renewables do. And so I've already told the teams there that I want to provide a lot more transparency across the whole waterfront, on outages and everything else and how we're doing. But in particular, I want you to have your own bird's eye view into what's going on with the dispatch, how much energy is being served by renewables, how much is being served by batteries, how all that fits together.
Okay. All right, let's go to our audience. What about district energy, specifically for district cooling? I'm not sure how much that applies to us. District cooling is local and use. Does that apply to us? You think?
Well, I'm familiar with district heating. Let me see if I can't draw an analog. I think they're probably trying to get to microgrids, if I had to guess, and then about what this question is about. And I do think there is a role for microgrids. And I'm here to tell you, JPS is going to take a position of trying to foster whatever energy solutions aren't there. What I don't want to do is be in a monopoly mode where we're in the way. So that's a cultural change that we have to do, and we will. So microgrids, I think, can play an important role in it. Now, the analog is you have some local steam generation that helps with heating. I think the same analogy can hold true for microgrids for electricity.
Okay. All right. Is Jamaica, particularly JPS, prioritizing distributed RE, say solar rooftop or other small systems, or energy efficiency as part of their long-term business strategy and local demand? Also, it would be great to understand if access to finance for behind-the-meter distributed solutions is a detrimental factor on distributed RE growth. Do we save that for the finance? Yes, I think so. Yeah. Okay. All right. So are you prioritizing? I know.
Yeah, let me, okay, I can draw upon my own experiences from California on this. Are we prioritizing? And let me tell you why. What we don't want to do is end up in a social injustice where the people that can afford to put rooftop solar on their roofs do it, and those that can't end up having to pay more and more of the system. Because I just think that creates inequities in the system, and what we don't want to do is put the burden on the less well-off people. So what I do know is that in general, large-scale renewables are cheaper than rooftop solar. They are, and the rooftop solar then I think can play an important role in terms of providing. I'll call it site-specific reliability. And again, I want to fall back on my experience on this. In California, on a day like today, I don't know, I haven't checked the weather in California, but 10, 15, 20% of the load is actually being served by distributed generation. So I know what it looks like. But a lot of it is because of economic distortions in the system that make people inclined to put rooftop solar on.
Okay, I think that maybe if I'm looking at the time, maybe we need to move to the financing panel.
Okay.
We have our energy producers, but we want you, of course, to stay with us because we want this to be a good
Okay.
conversation. Okay, so we talked about the need for decarbonizing the economy and decarbonizing the grid and moving out, and the fact that we needed to stay ahead of the curve. We needed, and we have diversification taking place in our renewables, and both Wigton and Jamaica Energy Partners, and we already have strong relationships with Canada. Again, partnering very strong has come out. So we want to now talk with our financial institutions, which we're told have been very supportive. So we want to follow up with that, and thank JPS for mentioning the focus, increased focus on transparency and really monitoring what's happening in the system. So if we can invite our financial partners to come forward while we just shift chairs. Yes. So we will invite Commercial Bank. We have Mr. Nelson from Scotia Group. We're not seeing Mr. Horn. Canada. Anybody there? You could maybe just raise your hands. We have an idea. So we have with us the National Commercial Bank, which is Jamaican Bank, and we have a representative of Scotia Group, which is a Canadian bank. I'm looking at the wrong.
That's right.
That's all right. Calling the right names, but the wrong faces.
That's right.
Wrong look.
That's right.
Right, yeah, okay.
Blue.
We were expecting another Canadian bank, but CIBC, but we're not seeing them at the moment. So we will move ahead until they come. So let's start with Scotia Group, Mr. Nelson.
So probably I could start by just introducing who we are.
Yes,
Scotia Group is a diversified group in Jamaica. We have a commercial bank that serves our personal and commercial customers, and investments brokerage, life insurance, and we also have a general insurance agency. We have been in Jamaica. We are a subsidiary of Bank of Nova Scotia in Canada, and we have been in Jamaica 134 years, come August 24th. We have
longer than JPS, which is now celebrating 100 years.
Certainly, we have continuously served the Jamaican public. We have close and personal, business and institutional clients, and over time has really built a long-term relationship in this market with our customers. Certainly climate change, I think, is the most pressing issue that impacts us now. I mean, if I were a climate denier, just leaving my office today and walking towards the car would cause me to change my mind in terms of just the intense heat. And so it is something that requires attention from, I would say, all industries, from all countries. And we are playing our part as a global bank, and we are focused our ESG strategy are really in four pillars, and resilience, inclusiveness, and leadership and governance. And today I'll speak a bit about what we're doing in terms of environmental action. We have published and we have made it public that we are committed to a net zero position by 2050. We have, as a global institution, committed $350 billion in climate finance, in sustainable climate finance projects by 2030. Up to 2022, We have deployed 96 billion of that amount, primarily in North America and Latin America. And so we have demonstrated our commitment to that. For a long time, we have built into our lending in systems, in our borrowing process, our lending process, assessment of climate change risk and environmental risk, and have been supporting our customers in terms of that transition, which is a major risk at this time. So, I mean, as a bank, we are committed. We have laid down the targets that we intend to meet. And so we are very, very supportive, both in terms of the customer operations in financing climate change initiatives.
Okay, thank you very much. That investment would be nice in Jamaica.
Certainly, we can talk a little bit later about what we're doing in Jamaica.
Jamaica. Let's see. All right, all right.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having us. So I bring greetings from the National Commercial Bank of Jamaica, and we too are a long-standing bank and a domestic bank here. We are a $2 trillion financial group and still the largest bank in Jamaica as it relates to specifically climate. And I want to zone in on that so we can get into the debate. We are very active in the green space. We have deployed locally, I'd say around about 100 million US in green energy and alike projects. And we're still committing to deploying capital there. Most recently, we've launched our green financing initiative, where we're providing direct financing and subsidized financing for those who are providing green energy support in the form of electric vehicles. And we will continue to assess that and scale it as we get better. So, I mean, we can get deeper into what we are as a global financial institution, but I think we want to dive deeper into what this green initiative is about and how we can play our part in financing some projects.
Okay. Do we want to go to Daniel? Yes. Okay. So Daniel, will you come in?
Thank you so much. Hello, how are you guys? Happy to be here. So a little bit of introduction about Export Development Canada. So we are the Export Credit Agency of Canada. We are not a financial institution. And our basic goal is to promote trade globally through our Canadian exporters. Obviously, we believe that we can make the world a better place through trade. And our main objective basically is helping the Canadian exporters have a big name and position themselves in the global markets. Regarding the topic, we mostly focus on three main aspects. One is managing risks with the Canadian exporter, securing financing with the Canadian exporter, and helping them with solutions so that they can keep growing their working capital through different or diverse products. And as you all have mentioned, our focus as well is very much oriented to the ESG side of things. We want to promote commerce, but through a very ethical proportion and cleaner energies, technologies of the future. And for us, that's very important in order for a change to be accomplished through our help. But our main objective, again, is not so much the financing side or the financing solutions that we can provide to Canadian exporters, but to promote trade. And we also do it through the knowledge side, through the connection side that we have, not only through our Canadian HQ, but also through our representation offices around the globe. We have one in Mexico. We have the one I'm at in Bogota, which takes care of the Andean, Central America, and the Caribbean region. And we also have offices in Brazil, in Chile, but also on the rest of the world, in Europe, Southeast Asia, in the Pacific. That's a big summary of EDC. And again, happy to be here and happy to connect and discuss how we can help promote commerce between our nations.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Daniel. As we're talking about our clean technology and reducing emissions, I'm going to ask our bankers to maybe say something about how they think they might contribute to reducing the urban heat island which we are creating. And because you are investing, you're lending, and maybe, I don't know if there's anyone in our Canadian audience who might want to speak about how they could perhaps contribute to that, working with our energy partners, working with our financial institutions, both the Canadian orientation and the Jamaican. Who
Well,
wants to go first?
I could go first, Eleanor. I think if you think about it, we are also a Canadian bank because our
Oh.
largest shareholder is a Canadian.
There we are.
So ultimately, we are Canadian owned, right? So
So we really are in.
we are in partnership. So I'll just add as it relates to collaboration, because that's in the spirit of what we're looking to do. It can help the previous panel to provide and get subsidized financing, because I think the role Daniel and his institution plays in the form of providing guarantees to the tune of up to 25 million US, I believe, Daniel, on each transaction. If JEP, Wigton, and or JPS are looking to do any type of transaction and they can access Canadian suppliers who are going to bring those equipment, and of course, they're world beaters in the quality of the equipment that they provide, that EDC guarantee that Daniel provides for the suppliers of the equipment, we can use that to subsidize the cost of borrowing. So using numbers here, and please don't quote me, if interest rates are at 10% on the commercial side and you get an EDC guarantee from Daniel's organization, then we can do a significant subsidy on that cost, which enables and allows those organizations to access that kind of financing. And I'm hopeful that we can do that. And that's how we would enable and unlock capital for opportunities like that.
You've heard that. Do you have a comment, a contribution
Yes,
to make on that?
Of course. I totally agree. And precisely one of our well, two of our main financial products that we use to collaborate with Canadian exporters. One is the guarantee. So basically, EDC commits to issuing a guarantee to financial institutions in Canada. Example, we have been working with Scotiabank for many years around the region. So, for example, if there's a Canadian exporter looking to pursue a couple of interesting projects in Jamaica per se, we issue a guarantee through Scotiabank so that it allows them to acquire a bigger capital so that they can deliver their solutions in the territory, as well as the other big product we also have with Canadian exporters that wish to go to Jamaica. It is our biggest one right now, is accounts receivable insurances. So this one, what really looks for is to mitigate the risk that they cover. So we insure at most like 90% of their losses against the risk of non-payment as a result of customers' inability to pay, political instability, or a sudden contract cancellation. So with these two products, that's how we work together. So these type of projects, especially on the clean tech side, for example, get promoted in international countries. And that way we can facilitate or we can share the risk with our Canadian exporters so that they can venture and that they can decide to promote their businesses abroad. So totally agree. And that's one of the main products we have right now. Last year in Jamaica, we finished with around $100 million just in accounts receivable insurance for all types of products and projects, sorry. But like manufacturing and clean tech being one of the highest ones. Also water solutions as well for not only Jamaica but for a lot of Caribbean countries. And we will continue to do this, especially right now. EDC is even promoting more financial facilities for Canadian exporters that wish to enter the clean tech sector. So by enhancing the possibilities of acquiring capital for clean tech solutions and prioritizing through EDC's strategy. I think that's one of the main things we are doing to promote the decarbonization initiatives, not only from Canadian exporters per se, but also from international countries and international companies.
Okay, thank you for that. Any input there from me?
Certainly. I mean, I think Daniel and Wayne spoke to the advantage that a bank like Scotia bring to transactions. We have a very, broad international footprint. We have very strong relationships with suppliers, with sponsors across several markets. And so that gives us an advantage in terms of seeing, varying structures across market. We work with, various regulations, etc. And so we can bring that to the transaction. Daniel spoke about working with EDC. Wayne mentioned earlier that we were a part of that project with WKPP in assisting, and that was one of the examples that they spoke of in facilitating that project. So a broad-based relationship or footprint or relationship with sponsors really give us an advantage in bringing real value to a transaction when we participate with our customers.
We have in the chat one of our participants who really wants, it would be wonderful to connect. And I like the term, it's called run with it synthetics. Is that Myrna Bittner? And you're talking about how you twin regions, what you do. So perhaps we can make a note of that. What we have, we are often asked to dial forward requirements for workforce scenarios in different forecasts, all kinds of imaginable and unimaginable climate events and impacts. I guess a lot of what we are experiencing now in many ways is unimaginable and so unpredictable because we're really seeing things move fast. We were talking about climate change as something far into the future, something moving slowly, but we certainly are seeing the impacts really very quickly. I got a photo, shall we say, of a 1 kilometer wide slump from permafrost that was melting in eastern Russia. And once permafrost melt, more carbon, and you're just having a multiplier effect. So it really, in many ways, is very scary because you're seeing happening on the ground what scientists have been saying, and we've been slow to pick up. So it's good to have financiers, it's good to have our energy producers talking with each other, talking to the audience, share with bankers and customers to receive standardized electronic energy billing and metering, data history and ongoing from JPS through account holder to look at finance viability and mitigation. I'm not sure who.
I'm not sure I'm clear on the question either, but
Yes, it's a.
But I think we can probably go another direction to Eleanor if you want.
Yes.
Or allow me to.
Yes, please.
While we're looking at projects, there is still there are sustainable projects that we've seen that we've accepted that we financed, but also there are deficit in terms of talent in the market as well. And I think we have to be very cognizant of how we help the next gen, because we've been asking everybody to be knowledgeable of the green energy, to be knowledgeable of ESG and the components thereof, but we're not embedding these practices in the universities or in the training centers where they should be getting these skill sets. So for the projects that the JEP requires, for the projects that Wigton require, for the projects that JPS requires, we will need ESG consultants. And what we're doing, we're importing that talent. If we know maybe that a part of the Mona School of Business or of the UTEX of this world or the universities that we can build in programs in by way of sponsorship to our organizations, we will now give the next generation the talent so that they can come forward and build up that skill set within our own economy so that we don't have to import the talent. So I think that's something just to plant in the minds of everybody here, that we can't just be thinking about doing the projects. We have to build a sustainable conveyor belt of talent that will replace us, because we have to build an infrastructure that succeeds you and I. And that's how I see it being done.
excellent point, because this is so true.
Yeah.
Not only for energy,
Yeah.
but for so much, in the ESG space.
Yes.
Right? And where are the resources? And they're not really embedded in our university system as well as they could be.
Yeah.
And perhaps this is another way that we could partner with our Canadian colleagues, because Canadian tertiary institutions have had a reputation of good linkages with us. And this is probably something we could throw out
Yeah.
going forward
Agreed.
from here as we're pushing this space. How do we build the capacity locally, and how can we partner to do that? And also, how can we finance it? Because always when we talk about doing, we have to have all sides of the equation.
Right.
And if-
Yes, I mean, I would say that there is a need for us to build a body of knowledge around climate change and primarily the transition. I find that there's a lot of work that needs to be done, especially with our major corporates who want footprint, but are sometimes not very sure as to what are the options available to them, etc. We in the Global Bank has put together a dedicated financial group that looks at sustainable financing, and they are available to us. We have leveraged their skill sets to consult with our customers who have this. And that is something that we are going to build on. Those resources are there; they are available to us to help our customers in the transition event. I think the question earlier maybe hinting at viability, because this is one issue. One of the things that we have seen is that there's quite a number of looking to alternate energy solutions, right? And if you look at in Jamaica, solar is one of those things that is readily available. Also, wind is available. Certainly, LNG has a low footprint than heavy and so what we see are customers are looking at solutions that will twin probably LNG with solar, and that I think has some will impact. There was a question earlier about behind the meter. Are these persons coming off the grid, APS and others? So I think there is need to build the awareness, to build the knowledge in Jamaica. We have put in resources to assist us, and that is available to our customers in that team to help us in that regard.
Is Wayne still on? I'm not sure. Wayne, are you still there? You've just raised a point, and perhaps we can bring back our energy people, Mr. Burbrick, GPS. Our local university apparently need large amounts of real data. Is there interest to share this energy data to the local educators?
That's what JPS and W.
Yeah,
And we've done.
and Wigton
And
and
JP,
Wayne
and
is
Wayne as
there. Yeah. Are you ready to, are
Yeah,
you
Wayne,
available
ready.
to share? You want to come back on, or you want to?
We need us to, do we need to step to the side?
Yeah.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Oh, you're going?
Yeah, no, I mean,
I was kind of hoping we'd have
everybody,
everybody.
all right, I can step to the
If we
side.
have enough. We can bring another chair, can we?
Can we could probably.
Or is it possible?
Hey, Wayne, how you do?
Oh, go on, you're good?
Yeah, mom, I'm good, I'm good. Didn't have to show up with the suit and tie.
Oh, I'm trying to take it off. It's hot outside.
Yeah, you look very decent today. I'm proud of you.
Yeah, I try.
All right, my friend. You can come here.
So I think we've,
Do you want?
we need to, we have to wrap up.
Oh, you have another one?
What the question was asked about, what's happening behind the grid? And maybe we want to, the effect of, I know Wayne is raising his eyebrows. I know he has some specific thoughts on that. We've heard it expressed before. The challenges as we go into renewables and how do we balance, how do we make, how do we make it all come together?
Look,
Okay, so go ahead.
I think I can, Steve probably would have more experiences than any one of the panelists where the advent of renewable and how we introduce them in a system, particularly an electric grid is concerned, and its impact, not just to the grid, but to the ratepayer, right? I've been part of a process where I operate a grid, and so I know exactly what variable energy can do to the guys who are managing that grid. Decarbonization process is one part of the trilemma, right? It's one part of getting the right balance where energy is concerned, climate change is concerned, and equity is concerned. So we understand the concept and the nuances of sustainability and resilience. And the only way small island development states, particularly in the Caribbean, can make some amount of advancement is if we are resilient to the shocks that comes from the energy side. And unfortunately, I burn every fuel oil. So whatever happens in Ukraine or the Middle East affects the price of fuel. But that's one thing. So we have JPSCO, which has a very robust grid, which can deal with clean energy technologies quite easily. But at the same time, there's a responsibility, there's a fiducious responsibility for the single buyer, which is JPS, and there's a fiducious responsibility to all of us who operate a grid to ensure that we are resilient, but at the same time, we have to be mindful of equity. We have to be mindful of this just transition from where we are to where we want to go. And we cannot be aggressive about the transition. And that's the thing that bothers me. So when you talk about behind the grid, the transition has to take place in a painstaking way where we, in my mind, we introduce these green technology with an increase in demand from the grid. So it literally follows the demand curve, and then you have replacement for those thermal units. That's what I think we need to do. But we can't be just dropping 50% renewable in say 10 years, under 10 years or whatever it is. It's going to be costly to the ratepayers, I think, if we are not careful with it. And it's also going to be hard for JPS in managing the grid if we're looking at energy only. And people like to talk about battery support. Batteries are not generators. Batteries are no different than your light bulb. It is, the only difference is it consumes the energy to charge and then it dissipates it like a generator. But so you will need something to charge those batteries. So the only thing I would want is an advocate for, as our old JPSCO employees, that JPSCO and us as stakeholders in the market be part and parcel of that narrative, the dialogue that we have. And with Steve having experienced it in California, where it was, let us change to green and the consequences on the grid, he could temper the emotions that we need to go green aggressively. So that's just my 2 cents. We need to transition, and we will transition, and we're using the grid as one thing, and we're using e-mobility as another thing. But I think the other thing that we need to look at is our building codes. We need to change our construction patterns. If you're putting up a complex, 20% of the complex, the common areas ought to be renewable, instead of dumping it on the grid itself to create the type of issues that Steve and his guys will have. So it's going to be a lot of policy, a lot of learning, and engagement through many stakeholders. It's not just the electric sector. That's just my position on it.
Very well said, very well said. And integration, holistic, and with many. Can we get a comment from each person as we try to wind up? I think that's a good kind of launching pad for us to summarize. Who wants to go? You want to go?
I could go first, it's not a
Yeah.
problem. So I say that I'm happy to be here to represent a bank in the financial sector, but I'm also happy to be here to collaborate with fellow financiers and also for solution providers. In the spirit of collaboration, we all have to come together, even with Daniel as well, in the form of using guarantees to get quality products and services on our shores to provide quality solutions for our customers and ultimately the ratepayers. It is not only a core issue, it's also the access to financing that we have to resolve. I think we should have this dialogue more often so we can find the solutions that are representative of what we have in store. And my final point would be, we have to build a sustainable conveyor belt of talent. We have to find a way to get the education to the next generation, and we have to be very deliberate in how we deliver that.
Important point, deliberate, as they say nowadays. I see a new term on this chat, and if somebody can help me, it's something about the energy. Anyway, as we have more prosumers become more prevalent, changing of the value chain. Does anyone know what prosumer is? Yes, please.
So a prosumer is somebody who's actively participating in the grid. Generally, they're producers and consumers. So a good example of this is somebody who has solar on the grid, and maybe they have, or on the rooftop, and maybe they have a battery in their garage, and they can both take and sell to the grid. So that's a prosumer.
Okay, thank you very much. I learned something today, and I hope most of us did. Okay, we're going from left to right. Let's hear from. Just a final kind of wrap-up comment. Michelle.
It's on to NCB's comment about the talent. We recognize that that there was a knowledge gap. So we actually started our training lab in 2016 to try and close that gap in terms of renewable knowledge. So we're in support of that as well.
All right.
Right. I mean, my closing comment is that climate change is real. We just need to step outside to see and feel the impact of that. It will require a collaborative approach across government, across individuals for us to solve this and solve it within a very short space of time. As a bank, we have laid down the markers in terms of targets. We have put in place support groups to assist our customers. We have set targets for our own operations in terms of net zero. And we are prepared to partner with everyone to ensure that we can transition to a low carbon economy in very short order because humanity depends on it.
Can I, if you don't mind, I kind of was talking about the prosumer. I want to just make a couple final comments, if I might.
Sure.
Because I think we also have to tie this back into the business opportunities for Canadian business and trade and things like that, which is why we're here. First, let me say, I think we have to find a way to do this. I think Wayne summed it up very, very well. We have to do this in a way that's not too aggressive, that drives up costs for the consumers. That we need to find a way of making sure we pay these costs while we do this. So I agree with everything Wayne said. I won't retread his ground. I will say, though, that there is immense opportunity there. There's going to be need for financing, whether it be distributed generation and models that can provide financing for rooftop solar. There are very, very creative ways of financing vehicles that can be had. And that's just on the consumer side. On the broad front, from a grid perspective, we're going to have to spend in excess of $1 billion to get to 50% renewables. Now, I don't want that to scare anybody, because I think, keep in mind, we can offset the enormous cost we have in imported fuel now. So there's going to be a give and take. It's not going to just be an additional $1 billion of costs. But it does present a great opportunity for investment and for business. And the final thing I will say to you, I saw this firsthand. decarbonizing the grid can be a great job creator. And a great, very good paying jobs. I think I think it for economic development across the entire country.
Okay, excellent point.
I will also like to add, given our my fellow panelist colleagues, that I don't want to be repetitive, but I think the limitations we have, not only that we see it in Latin America, but also we see it in Canada. There's ESG capacity restrictions. We do require talent not only for Latin American countries, but for the entire world. There is restrictions in this talent in every country. And for the transition side, it's not only that we have to do a quick transition, but I will also, as a living thought, believe that we have to do a fair transition. We cannot cut out certain solutions that will impact in the mid and long term the end consumer, because we're trying to do things the fast way. We believe, and our support goes more to doing things correctly, slowly but surely, but that it's a fair transition to all. Ultimately, what this will impact, obviously, it's not only the global impact it has on emissions, but the societies, the communities do have a big impact, and we have been measuring it in Latin America, where countries are trying to do this the harsh way, and it has resulted in high tariffs of energy that the most communities cannot afford. So it's not only the way we do it, but how we do it. And in that sense, obviously EDC, most important approach is not only the financial solution. We can find financial solutions, but mostly the knowledge and the connection side, that we may be able to target this not only as a Team Canada approach, but as a global approach, so that the solution benefits the economy, the communities, and in the long term, the net zero objectives are acquired. It's not only safe to say we have to do the transition, it's more important that we do a fair transition.
Just transition as the term goes.
It's a good term.
I see a lot of reference to district cooling, and I think Steve said that he thought that was the microgrid concept. Is there anything else that you want to say about that?
Well,
Because there it is, it keeps coming up.
yeah, there's I think what we're trying to get to here is we have high heat islands, obviously, in these urban areas, and there's more than just and things. Frankly, reflective surfaces, tree canopies. There's a lot of things that you can do and invest in that is good for the environment, not very expensive, and can have an immense impact.
And so that's perhaps one of the takeaways that we ought to be thinking. And so the question is, where do we go from here? And maybe I throw this back to our Canadian hosts. What stimulated some discussion, and there's a lot to happen. Maybe we can take it back through the private sector organization of Jamaica to lead. We have an energy, environment, and climate change committee. And perhaps we could bring the Canadians in, follow up some of this. We know we're going to follow up with the JPS. We work closely with the have these sessions, we talk, we know it's trade. We've seen from our audience opportunities, I think, that and suggestions. How do we make it happen? Sorry?
And
Can we hear?
the quick way to respond to that would be to say, get in touch with the Canadian High Commissioner of Service here at the High Commission, and we'll take it from there.
Okay. All right.
Maybe you can repeat that. Since
Yeah. So to move forward, we get in touch with the Canadian Trade Commission Service here at the Canadian High Commission, so that we can, if anyone has anything they want to follow up with, then they can be the conduit for making it happen. Sorry?
It's in the chat.
Oh, and it's in the
It's in the
chat,
chat.
right?
Mhm.
The email contact is there.
Okay, great.
Okay, so follow-up opportunities, please email Kingston Trade at International. You can see it. Is there anything else from our virtual audience? Any other comments before we close up? Anything? Anybody? Any of our panelists?
No, that's it for me.
That's it?
Yeah.
That's it? All right, so it remains for me then to thank NCB,
Yeah.
thank JPS, thank PNS, thank Wigton, and our trade commissioner, senior trade commissioner. And those of you, and those line, so much, it's quite a large group. It had gone up to, I think, 50, 20. 36, 39, and we now have 32, sorry. And the YouTube channel as well. So thank you very much. It has been a very good level of participation. And I think there's a lot for us to follow up. So it remains for us to be in touch with the Canadian High Commission, the Trade Commission, and to take this forward.
All right. Thanks,
Okay.
guys.
All right, all right. Sign off, probably a little bit ahead of time, but that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
Thank you, Daniel. Very nice to
Call
meet
in that.
you.
Yes.
Thank you
Right,
Vince,
Darren,
for
Dr.
participating
And the bank was-
virtually. This
Yeah.
new technology helps us to do a lot of things. Yes.
Thank you so much.